All right, so here we go for our second project. Actually, I know it says part three, but this is our second project. What we're going to do is if you take a look in your image folder on the download disk, there is a soda bottle in there that you can take a look at. And I'll open it up and I'll show you here. Open up the images folder, and you're going to see a soda bottle. Okay, that one right there. What I want you to do is change your viewport to a front view. Okay, like that. Then take that soda bottle and simply just drag it in. Okay, so open the folder on your desktop and drag that in. You might have to size down your Cinema 4D window. And then you can take your arrow here and just zoom out. And what's neat about this is that rather than worrying about going to find a bunch of tools and everything else, it's often great just to drag and drop. And I don't think a lot of people realize you can do that. So just another little handy thing there. Okay. From here, what I want you to do is go to Edit and then Configure. And then in your attributes, you can go to the Back tab right here. And then bring the transparency down to maybe about 50, 60%, something like that. And the reason you're going to bring the transparency down is because as we draw the curves over this, that's simply just too bright and your curves will be hard to see. So you just want just enough outline there so you can see what's going on. Okay. Now, the tricky part about this particular shape is that at the bottom, you've got these little indents. Okay. We're going to go back later after we build our curve, do our lathe NURBS like I showed you in the previous video. We'll go back and we'll edit that bottom so that it shapes out a little bit better for us. For the top right here, and I guess I should make this more visible, I'll show you how we can actually make these swirls as well. It's a little bit easier than you might think. Okay, and we're going to do it as geometry. We're not going to do it as a bump map, as an image map. You could, but I'm going to show you how to do it with geometry, and then we can try and do it as a bump as well if we feel that might be a little bit better. Now, I typically like to start at the bottom. You can start at the top. It doesn't really matter. Okay, but we're just going to zoom in. Go over here to our curves, and I'm going to choose a B-spline. As mentioned, you can choose Bezier if you like. And I'm going to start right here, pretty much at the bottom. I'm going to click away and just come down like this. And I'm just going to keep this bottom relatively flat because we're going to change this later. So I'm going to come out here to make this my corner and line that up, and then I can come straight up. And generally, the less points you have, the smoother your shape is going to be. Meaning, if you have a straightaway like this, you really just want to keep it straight like that. You don't need to add a number of points in there. Okay. You want to point pretty much where there's a corner or a turn. So don't let that scare you if the shape starts to change a little bit. And remember, we can edit these after the fact. It's pretty good to get them down as close as you can to the actual shape. It's a little easier than trying to edit it. Another thing that's important when you're doing this, whether it's a bottle, a logo, anything else, keep your multiple points uniform as much as possible. Your shape will end up having a little bit better look to it. Okay, so now the question comes, do you model the inside? Do you come down here and bring this curve all the way around? Do you use a Boolean to cut out the inside when you're finished? Well, that's totally up to you and how you want to portray the model. For what we're going to do, we're actually going to keep this as just a single shape. And because it's going to be transparent, we'll actually be able to see an inside. So we're not going to worry too much about modeling an inside. Now, I'm considering the cap as a separate element. If you don't want to, just kind of do this. Just bring your point over like this. And just come around. Still consider that shape of the cap underneath there, and I might have to make that a little bit tighter. So what you can do is just undo, and then come in like this, come in closer, and I'll just model this as one. We can cut it off later, but if you want to look closely, you can see that there's the inside of the bottle. You can come up like that and stop it and make a cap or separate piece. I think maybe what we should do is just keep this as one for the time being. So as we get in closer, we can get much more precise on this. And we'll come in like this. This also goes to show you that it's important to have a pretty high res image to work with. This one's not the best, but it's not the worst either. Okay. And those corners are really the trickiest part. All right, so there is our basic shape. I'll pull it out so you can see it. Now when you do this, you have a choice down here to close the curve in your attributes. We don't want to close it. We want to leave that open because we're going to lathe it. And if you close it, you're going to have a wall of polygons on the inside. You don't really need that. If after the fact you want to change this curve, you can. You can change it to a Bezier, a cubic, a Kima, and some of the others. Again, experiment with those, see how you like them. They all kind of do the same thing. It's just they handle the layout a little bit differently. You can have more of a uniform, adaptive, and so on. I like adaptive, so that allows us to position it where we like. And I believe that the curve angle is just working just fine. Okay. So there we go. There is our curve. You can look at it in a perspective view if you want to get an overall view of it. Press the S key to select. And it looks like a very nice cross section. Now the reason it's good to do this over an image is because your ratios are correct. If you remember that quick little one I just did in the previous video, well, it kind of looks, you know, I'm not really following the shape. So as much as you think you know what something looks like, you're not really going to know until you actually have something in there and pick up all those little nuances. Like most people probably would have put the cap straight when it really has sort of an indent right there. A little extra bulge right here. Most people would have curved this too much. I know I would have. So again, it's just good to have a really strong reference when you're building something like that. All right, so let's save this. We'll save as, and we'll call this bottle curve. All right, and we'll move on to the next video and keep making this bottle.